Okay, so once you have your model prepared, so once again you want to have a thickened mesh, and you want to make sure your file is in millimeters before you go ahead and export that file. I'm going to set myself up to millimeters. When it asks if I want to scale, I'll hit yes. Okay. And now I'm ready to export this file. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, go to File, Export Selected. I can save it wherever I need to. So I'll give it my name. Okay, and under Save As Type, I'm going to change it to STL. So I'll change it to STL and go ahead and hit Save. The STL export options you can pretty much leave as default. I'll just click OK. And then the next part of this is to actually upload my model to the new software. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new tab, go to staging.makerfleet.com. And you should all receive an invite to join this page. And so once you've received an invite and created a login, you'll be able to go in here and log in. Okay, and once you've logged in, what you want to do first is go ahead and upload your model. So over on the left-hand side, this panel, I'm going to click on where it says Models, and up at the top, I'll click on New Model. Now I can either drag my file in here, or I can go to the directory where I saved it. Okay. And after a few seconds, you should see your model pop up in the viewport. Now, there's a couple things we want to look for here. One of them is, and if we look on the little left-hand side with this eyeball, it's going to tell us basically two bits of information. The first one is how much of our model is actually touching the base. So as I mentioned in the modeling tutorial, it's rather important that you have a flat edge at the bottom, because if you don't have enough surface contact between the model and the printer bed, it's not really going to print very well. You run the risk of the part not sticking to the base and having your print fail. The other thing that we want to look at here is if I go to surface quality and check on, you can see what it's going to look for is basically overhangs. It's going to look for any place where we have part of the model that's unsupported. Now, in this case, as I mentioned before as well, because this is bridging, number one, and number two, obviously as the print goes, it's going to start at the bottom and work its way up. So in this case, even though this area is sort of unsupported, meaning that it's printing out in the air, should be able to work its way towards the center up from the bottom of the print. So we don't need to worry about this in particular. However, if you had areas that were red that were hanging out in space with nothing coming up from underneath, then you would want to go ahead and add support either in Rhino or in this software. Now the last thing we want to do is up at the top, I can click on dimensions, change in inches, tell me, okay, model is about 2 by 2 by 2 inches, which is good. Then we know the scale is correct. And again, that's why we want to change our units into millimeters. This software is millimeters. If you didn't change into millimeters, that's okay. What you want to do is scale it up by 2,540. That's the scale factor from inches to and I'm going to change that to 100. And once everything looks like it's in good shape, I can go ahead and click where it says Update. Take a second, and it'll actually at this point upload the model to the cloud server. And once I'm ready, go ahead and click Move page. See, now it's downloading that here. So when you were invited to join Makerfleet, you should have been invited inside of the for Capla, which means that you can print to the printers we have here at the school. So this should automatically be set to Capla. Printer type, again, we should only have one type, it says. And under material, again, we'll only have one. So once that is all set up, I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And in here, once again, I can look at surface quality, this layer, and then once I've saved the print job, I can also visualize the printing operation, which will help me understand, whether I need support. So back to the middle. Okay. Now over here, there's a couple settings. Again, this stuff you won't mess with. I don't even have any options for that. If you do have big overhangs, you can try and this button support. So if we do it right now, click Save Print. This software will automatically generate some geometry to support the supported parts of your model. See, it's generating a big block of that inside part of our model. Now, what's important to remember here is this is going to add a lot of time to our. So if we can avoid it, we want to not use support. So in this case, again, we don't need support for this print. The other problem is you'll have to actually cut the support away once it's printed. So I'm going to uncheck Add Support. The other thing that to note again is the first layer. So they recommend that if your print has less than 12% of the surface area touching the bed, add something called the brim. So if I click Add Brim and click Update Print Job, what that does is it just adds a kind of wider base to the bottom of your print where it's touching the bed, and that will actually help you make sure that the print is sticking to the bed. So once you've saved your print job, again, the print visualizer turn. Actually drag this slider up, and it'll actually show us like a live section through our geometry and kind of illustrate how that geometry is going to be printed. Zoom in on this, you can kind of see what's going on. So these are the default settings that run with this software. We're going to have a double wall shell, and then, as I mentioned before, there will be a kind of fill, add some strength. And again, this is a good way to check as we go up. Start to see where it's going to bridge, right? It's important to notice or to note whether or not that's going to be a problem. I think that we need support there. In this case, we should be all right. Okay. So once I'm all done with that, once I have my settings established, I can go ahead and click Start Print Job. I want to click Print. And then what will happen is I'll have to actually see if there's a printer that I can print. Now, one thing that's going on right now is if I go to up at the top, so these are my two print jobs that are running at the moment. If I go up to the top where it says Capla, and I go to printers, I can see all the print jobs that are happening at the present time. Now, if there's a print that's just finished, and I think that printer is available, I'll be able to tell from the live webcam feed whether or not that the printer has been removed from the bed. If it hasn't, I'll have to go down and actually remove that printer from the bed, and then it should take me a couple of minutes. Oops. Back too far. So again, I can go Capla. So printers, and I can see that there is one printer that's currently running a print, and then one printer that's available. So if I go back on the left-hand side to where it says Print Jobs, and I look under scheduled. So if there isn't a printer available, your print will show up here. What you'll want to do is wait until there's a printer available, and you can actually go ahead and clean it. You'll have to come back into the software and click clean down in the right hand corner, and then you'll be able, and then your print will automatically start after a few minutes. It's also important to note, so right now I'm watching the live feed from this printer, which is about to start my print. And before it can do anything, you'll notice here under nozzle and bed, it has to actually heat the printer up, right? It has to heat the printer nozzle up, and it has to heat the printer bed up. So as we watch these numbers go up, then we should see our printer start to move. And I believe that's it for this part of the tutorial. So I sign off.